Good morning from San Francisco. We're live here at BART and Beckett Books. My name is Denise Sullivan, and this is the San Francisco Live Talk series, which we do occasionally on the second Sundays of the month. We've been going for about 2 years now, and I have to say, or more, and I have to say, one of the first people I thought of to have join us is our guest today, Tongo Eisen-Martin.
Right on.
Yeah, welcome. Tongo is a poet, a publisher, an organizer, an all-around San Franciscan and international phenomenon, okay? And I'm just so pleased to have you here. I'll just backtrack a minute. The reason I didn't ask you immediately is because you were in the middle of that San Francisco Poet Laureateship. And I know that when that happens, people are pulling at you in every direction, and you had like so many commitments. Plus, we had a pandemic. But I want to just start by asking, poets and writers can be introverted by nature or maybe a little shy. So how did you adapt to that public role, just being dropped in it in the middle of a really weird time?
I think, the affliction of my shyness is probably, or I would guess, for others is kind of is rooted in the knowledge of knowing what a word, or not to be too grandiose, what the word can do. And so you want to take your time, and kind of real-time communication can get a little choppy. What counteracts that anxiety, though, is the the kind of the intensity of the current historical task of really of contributing to a revolutionary process, and therefore stumbling through a conversation really is worth contributing to the fight against what we see as just a insanely genocidal time, or kind of, what can be the death throes of empire and an empire's block, and all of the heightening of carnage that comes with that, both domestic and abroad. We see what's going on in the Middle East right now, especially with Palestine. We see what's going on in Syria. But I think, what's also caused to get over our anxieties, to get over our comfort zones, is also this, this heightening of the neo-Confederate wave that really, started trying to save capitalism even before we get to a Trumpism. We see this alignment to just that it kind of the more extroverted white supremacy that the United States has always harnessed its masses with, and how that's become even more and more deadly. My tenure as, like, for example, when I think of my tenure as San Francisco Poet Laureate, I mostly think about St. Paul, Minnesota, where my cousin was murdered by a white supremacist, stabbed in the heart for parking behind his residence. The guy was convicted of second-degree murder and was only given 1 year in jail, not even in prison. Gave him 360 days so he wouldn't have to go to prison. And I think second degree murder is supposed to, come with at least 10 years in Minnesota. But the judge said he takes 3 things into account in sentencing people. I don't remember the first 2, just the one that was the justification for the life sentence. And he said, I sentence people partly for deterrence. And I don't feel like this warrants that we have to worry about this. Like this being, we don't need the public to worry about their prerogative to murder a black a black man if they want to.
Yeah.
So going back and forth to St. Paul and being involved in organizing efforts around that, this is what strangely and not strangely, ironically, I don't know, funny. This is what I dwell on, or it's the flashbacks I have, and the more you open yourself to what's really, to the true products of social reality and social contradiction, actually the uglier and uglier, or the less and less individual the picture becomes for you. And so to land the plane, at a certain point, what it's like, what is it, like there's no atheists in the trench or something?
Right.
Like similarly,
yeah.
Idiosyncrasy, you know what I mean, or whatever.
Yeah.
Quirks don't matter. Quirks begin to diminish in the trench too. I think it's that kind of like that U.S. individualism, where you really think the world is your individual adventure.
Yeah.
I think that can can expand that mirror, but yeah, for me, I kind of gave up on being cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In light of in light of the historical task.
Well, it's really heavy, and I'm glad you made that point. It's like you had this wonderful thing happen for you personally, but you were dealing with personal familial tragedy and horror, and it was an area that you're not unfamiliar with because you've studied murder of black men deeply.
Women too.
Yeah, and so then it hits home, and yet you do have this gift of poetry, and then being recognized for such. So we're always asked to hold more than one thing at a time, and it is kind of like the sign of a psychological balance and health when we can recognize that that these things are going on. So I get that, and I hear you. I wonder if you would, if you can, call up a piece or a few lines of poetry from that time, or anything specific to your cousin or that situation when you think of that time.
Mm-hmm. That's my cousin, eulogized now in literary history. Wasn't pretty, this effect on my eternal soul. Like belated parenting, we haunt each other in quick bursts, sample the drug, wrestle the angel, no depth of setting. Imagine what defines a creature, where remnants of concrete put none of the world down except slabs of a deadbeat nationalism or a bloodline making the news again. True, I have an absence of style. I'm just a doorstep moving dead body to dead body.
This is how I came to understand what you do. I don't know much about poetry, but I know that your words move me and people, and this is what people respond to, the thing that I think of, thank you for that. Some people say that everyone's a poet or could be a poet. Other people are more of the line of thought that it's more important to read poetry than it is to write poetry. Mm-hmm. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
I kind of, in my ever journeying like conception of what poetry is, one kind of conclusion that I find helpful is that poetry is the opportunity to see what your mind has to communicate or how your mind wants to communicate when not tasked with survival, especially in in an imperialist society. we we literally talk to stay alive. You know what I mean? Or we talk to or the social reproduction that's at stake has this life has consequences of life and death. And so when you take and it's not even necessarily, excuse me, the aforementioned time mistake. It's not even necessarily magical or mystical. Almost like back to the quirky personalities of poets, hinging on real-time communication, right? So if I just take the pressure of having to engage in this certain timing, someone conversationally, and I have the time and the space, well, now, in a way, social convention, or really hegemony, also kind of relaxes, or is only as present as you want to bring it in, right? And so, in this sense of poetry, then we could say is just the opportunity to think outside of social convention, especially hegemonic, oppressive. Everyone is definitely a poet. and we all do well to to pass through that way, to scribble and to read. So I think it's a helpful component of the human imagination or human journey, especially in a society like this.
Well, it seems like, it's a tool for you, especially like just to break it down and also to remind you that we are talking to people that don't necessarily know anything about what we're talking about or who we are. So I like to keep that in mind. Okay, so when you were named Poet Laureate of San Francisco, and you have other things that you're doing in your life that you want to bring into that role, right? I would, salute you for your deftness and ability to kind of take this revolutionary platform into these, backward institutions, and have an impact. This was really incredible. So let's just roll back to that. You're there on the dais or whatever, the mayor and this and that. Okay, and then you have to go, and then you're organizing in St. Paul, and it's a whole different deal. But the people that give the prizes and give the titles, they are not aware of that work, or it's just not in their consciousness, or somehow you made it work, against the odds. And not everybody who's on the outside is able to penetrate, the inside. It's like that classic thing where Dr. King is like, hey, I don't want to get in here because I think I could do better out here, right? So, but I know that's garbled, but hopefully you know what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, I got you. I've always found it helpful to not try to come up with kind of a hybrid existence, right?
Yeah.
To not lean on like the noble profession. Professions suck and belong to capitalists. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nobility belongs to the people. You know what I mean? Who exist in contradiction with said capitalists. You can't make a hybrid. What I do is there is the science and art of being in a revolutionary process. There is the science and art of writing, and there's also the cosmologies you might want to describe to just for internal cultivation. Whatever makes you a kinder person to yourself and others. You know what I mean? This type of thing. And I find it helpful to engage the three according to their necessities, certain laws that you really can't break. And then after that, if they want to weave together and cough up some kind of, like apparition of a situation, like a revolutionary lawyer, whatever, then that will be food for jokes later. You know what I mean? But especially when it comes to a kind of a revolutionary process, it's one kind of almost not necessarily spectrum. Let me just say, let me not be too ambitious this early with my word choice. A thing to always keep in mind is priority, political priority, principles. What can be sacrificed, what cannot be sacrificed for an objective. And so it really isn't, there isn't too much to mastermind, because I'm really just playing it by the numbers. And the movement task was also here, as and I wish it took place in San Francisco, but there was a struggle against school closures in Oakland.
Right.
And they were closing, a wave of closures that really, from that I learned from participating. Really, you might be surprised at how destabilizing an effect the closure of a neighborhood school has on the neighborhood, because it's a serious reduction in the cultural or almost institutional life, the people's institutional life of a neighborhood. When you reduce a location, you just sleep here, this has a great kind of inhibiting effect on the collective consciousness, as well as literally, watching people move to get, because like a working parent, I can't, working parents actually go where the school is. But anyway, there were all of these, all kind of tactics, teachers strikes. There was even a hunger strike. I forget the two teachers' names, but they did a hunger strike, and they almost died. Like they did real damage to their bodies. Nothing was working, and so finally, these two mothers, along with a couple of people who had been organizing around the issue, decided that they were going to just take a school. And so on graduation day, on the last day of school, these mothers, they just didn't go home. And it grew into this, fairly substantive occupation of this building. I think it was like 4 months. And I was in the core organizing committee of that as well. And I'm happy to report, that we threw poetry events
Right.
in the occupation. But the moral of the story is that what are we actually doing, or why can we not, like, you either believe that a kind of a people's imagining of reality that actually protects human rights and nurtures human curiosity is how things should be set up, or you would want to surrender to bourgeois, capitalist, imperialist, whatever you want to insert their structuring of reality. That is, and we know what comes with that. So a good time, fame, fortune, or whatever, or even just an ability to say whatever you want and still, and not be too persecuted, not be too professionally persecuted or something. Like, all that is possible with a bourgeois structuring of reality, but we know what comes with that is how many, like, what's the number at right now in Palestine? Or what will the number be when we finish with famine and disease and all of this, right? So it's almost just due to the realities of interconnectedness, like there's a no-brainer. And I appreciate everybody who wants to play along with, everybody who takes some time out of bourgeois scheduled programming to engage the poems. But ultimately, this is insane.
Right.
And then, so, it's my primary drive is to is to live sanely. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is to put together structures of resistance.
Yeah. Well, we should say that we have this school closure thing now upon us here in the city, and B, that you did do organizing here in the city in terms of getting workshops together and poetry workshops, right? And opening doors to various studios and places where people could gather and it just have community, right? And poetry might have been a part of it, or other arts, but just basically getting the keys to some structures where people could be free to be themselves and make art.
And not to be, and cultural work is not to be underestimated, to give people, kind of opportunities to relate to each other outside of, the kind of capitalist induced characteristics, to socialize outside of transaction,
Right.
to socialize outside of alienation,
Yeah.
is definitely a part of scaffolding.
Yeah.
But I'm just always not evangelizing, but campaigning for priority of perspective.
Yeah.
I would say. Or to say, which it makes my efforts, like, it just makes things simple for me,
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate you breaking it down. I guess the next question would be, well, how did you come to get into this head and have such a strong sense of direction? And I guess we'll take it back to, the dinner table, and then the classroom, if that applied at all. But, you developed this line of thought along the way. Who were the teachers?
Well, we have the teacher right there in the back, masked up, because, the feds are still on her heels. So, she can't reveal her face, but that's my mother right there, who was, like competent, a revolutionary, barring no historical figure, and so having that, having that upbringing, also, being reinforced at Meadows Livingstone Elementary School, we know that kind of human nature is not necessarily organic, outside of the or is very much formed by the institutions that we participate in, the bigger pictures of the wholes that our psyche bounces back and forth to and from, defining ourselves or shaping ourselves to participate or survive or be successful in an environment. That's what the ruling class knows. So to create an institution is to affect the psyche, is to or the mass psyche, and so I got one hell of a head start, and the kind of the walls, for a tragic lack of a better word, that I was defining myself from, the landmarks, the social shapes, were revolutionary. Is that necessary for transformation of people's consciousness? No. Because again, there's an insanity. There's just it's psychotic to the to social reality. Anybody with an instinct and say, like, this is, not only is this wrong, this is genocidal. You know what I mean? That's it. It only takes a little flicker of rationality to start you on a journey. But I did, for me, I did like benefit greatly, because putting together a kind of an immune system. When the home creates an immune system, because we also know that that their cultural project, the bourgeois imperialist cultural project, is one of blitz. There's a torrential rain of, can we cuss?
Yeah.
Bullshit. Second to second, they like, you know what I mean? There's nothing but messages that say, you will be okay if you disregard humanity. You will be safe. You will be successful if you disregard the humanity of these people, and those people. And so having that kind of, having that origin story did like inoculate me, so that I'm less prone to be moved by overtures to individualism. And also when, when things go okay, I'm not going to be, it's not intoxicating to me. An individual accomplishment is not as intoxicating, I think, or along the way,
Well, yeah, let's talk a little bit about your community here and elsewhere. I mentioned teachers, and I know that you have kind of a cohort of poets and movement workers that you work side by side to try to get things done. But before that, was there anyone that was kind of a shining light that you were looking at in terms of living a life that is holistic?
Yeah, man, that a very impressive kind of thinker and organizer that everyone should look into. There is a comrade named Kali Akuno. He was one of the kind of first contemporaries, revolutionaries from this time, who I saw really like embody a revolutionary praxis, and saw how he moved with it in real time. He was a great influence. I don't know. At this point, though, man, every day I meet a new magical comrade. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or not, maybe not every day. Every couple months. every 2-3 months. Right now, I'm coordinating political education for Community Movement Builders, which is the organization that jumped in front of the kind of part of vanguarding the Stop Cop City efforts in Atlanta. And as I've been coordinating political education for them, there's some like really impressive movement folks of different age demographics involved in that. When I was just in Boston. You know what? I'm not even gonna say her name because she likes to keep her things so low. You know what I mean? But there are some impressive people that really embody the praxis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can you say? What kind of organizing effort is taking place in Boston?
Yeah, it's just organizing around just issues of Black domestic colonization.
Yeah. So I mean, we're talking around, and I'm going to let you take this if you want to take it. I mean, what's happening now is what's on everyone's mind. I mean, it's the elephant in the room, right? Like, how are we going to deal with this insanity, and what are we doing presently to confront the situation that is before us and has been? But it's reaching this culmination point where a lot of people are suddenly, I need to do something, or check out entirely. That's what
do that.
Well, we've seen it. Some folks are totally checked out. But for those who are interested in being part of the solution, so to speak, what are you suggesting to keep sane? Okay, and we can talk about self care and healing and whatnot, but I mean, in the immediate aftermath of this election and the holding of the insanity and the continuous struggle in Palestine and on and on and on, how does one wake up, get dressed, and go throughout the day without losing their mind? Just sample.
Yeah, well, what we're gonna have to come to terms with. You have to come to terms with is that a Trump as theatrical, or as theatrically put together as much as it's designed to overwhelm your senses, a presidency, as much as it's designed to overwhelm your senses, is just one component of, again, for lack of better, an insane organization of production, right? And an insane enforcement, really, of a settler colonial project. I don't know why anybody thought that they could get away with mass murdering millions of indigenous people, or that we could just start something based on the surplus value extracted from hundreds of years of slavery. You can't outrun that. And further, it's not the nature. I mean, like Paulo Freire said, like a slaveocracy doesn't have within it even like the DNA to become a democracy. Or, Malcolm X, America cannot produce freedom for black people no more than a chicken can lay a goose egg. Now what's kind of the, I think, and this is not, these are images we've had before, right? Nuclear bombs on Japan, we see what happened in Vietnam. We know how many, 60 million people were killed in the Congo. How many people did Leopold kill? Right. It really is all this system is. It's just a genocidal murder machine that that just protects these moneyed interests to the detriment of even the biosphere. I think maybe that might be the one difference between now and the era of seeing something going on in Vietnam. Now, like time is almost up. What we have to come to terms with is like somebody's gonna die, us or the bourgeoisie. The two are not coming out of this historical process. You're not. It's not happening. And so, if you want to, so it seems like that can seem like it might even seem like a dramatic statement. It's really what they're telling. It's what the evidence is showing, right? But it's coming to terms with letting that conclusion guide your activity. It's actually a simple. They're actually simple equations, or it doesn't have to be some kind of fantastical. You don't have to be a military genius, or I don't know what kind of showdown this comes to, but all it means is that you have to start preparing yourself for power, preparing yourself to actually participate in the historical process critically, to not allow yourself to just be to live in this kind of alienated shell, or compartmentalize yourself. This is me doing what I want to do. This is me doing what I have to do. This is me doing what I like to do. This is me trying, no, you are one human being whose various social powers are being pulled out of the power to determine various, to determine social reality, which is yours by right, is being taken from you, or you're surrendering it. So all the movement process is reabsorbing it and understanding that I cannot be a whole human being unless everybody else is a whole human being, including our oppressors, who are also living in weird husks of a human psyche, right? So what that means in this stage of struggle is interesting. Went with my mother down to Venezuela, right? Saw a little bit of the Bolivarian revolution, an incomplete revolution. We won't go out into the weeds with that, but something like overwhelming to the senses that I saw was that they just kind of took the horror out of being poor. To be poor no longer meant that you would starve to death or have no education, no protection, that you could live somewhere, and it's an interesting thing when the hospital is free, the heart, the best universities are open admissions, it doesn't actually take a huge reimagining of reality, just reorienting the institutions you already participate in. And so for yourself too, you don't have to come up with a whole new revolutionary lifestyle. Just take what you're participating in and transforming it as much as necessary to make it truly an exercise in collective self-determination. So let's go take another school. You know,
Right.
let's, if we have to, right, to truly orient this a school to growing a whole human being or helping a whole human being grow itself. What needs to happen? Let's go do that. To make sure that an art scene is actually providing processes where all who wander in this way are becoming human beings. What needs to happen? Let's do that by any means. You know what I mean? What needs to happen in this hospital, right? See, this thing is about healing human beings. Let's make sure it's doing that by any. You see, so it's not all it really starts with is a sobriety or a clarity to always be returning to, like, what is actually happening here and what needs to happen so that this little process, this little piece of reality is actually nurturing human beings.
Yeah, I think I get it. Just for the benefit of folks who may be interested in finding their way in, their community. We'll just mention again, San Francisco Unified School District, struggling. City College of San Francisco, struggling. San Francisco State University, they have every institution now is under duress, seeking some kind of alternative reality to the present one that isn't working. There's opportunity for change in it. Like you say, it doesn't have to be, it's not that heavy of a lift. It's just a change in the viewfinder, right? And to get into a different headspace. But it's going to take some individuals to.
Well, in Oakland, you have a great organization called People's Programs. There are organizations to join.
We don't have to reinvent the wheel each time.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel at all.
Yeah.
Just participate.
Right. That's it.
And be, gently critical of your participation, or just, to examine, to analyze what's working, what's not working, and how I participate. What's working and not working with what this organizational formation, is doing. How can we correct it? So just keeping a critical conversation, dialogical.
Yeah.
Freire called it. Right. Just keep talking to yourself and with each other about how are we progressing.
Yeah. I want to check the time. Oh, boy, that went fast. But I want to talk about books for a minute, because you have several. You are a publisher, which means you're responsible for getting books by other people out into the world. And that's actually how I became acquainted with you and your work, was through the bookstore community.
Shout out to Modern Times.
Yeah, Modern Times. And even prior to that, the effort to keep Marcus Books in San Francisco, which still goes strong in Oakland. But before I even knew you or your brother Biko, I reached out to, on a recommendation, to get you all involved in that. And you were not living in the area at the time, but it was bookstore to bookstore to bookstore that we take this word, right? And the books and the message come with us. And Beckett has been a home for this kind of work and this kind of discussion.
This is actually where I had my first the book release of my first book was here. Yeah.
Yeah. The Bootstrap Press
book.
The
Bootstrap book. Yeah.
Wow. And that's an interesting story. So let's just take you from reading to getting your first book out to becoming a publisher, and what happened in between the two books and the awards and all that in between. And not about you, but we're going to use it as a kind of tutorial for a young poet who has a message, an urgent message to the world, and is just trying to find his way, you know, or her way. How did that go? We got to do it in 10 minutes.
Take 12. Well, so I would say like brief, almost, because I don't know. I really cannot evangelize. It would be irresponsible of me to evangelize along the lines of like your adventure as an artist at this point. And I'm so sorry that you were born to this time. But like the biosphere is really in trouble. You know what I mean? It's gonna be like you know, saltless oceans. Like what like forget it. Forget your individual ambition. Join the struggle. I promise you. We can figure out you know, let's win, and then we can be poets again. So
is the publishing venture on ice?
No, it's not. It's not. I was getting there. I was just thinking, you know, like how you, for the poet who has the message to go pass out some leaflets. but even along those lines, you know, really, it's as much as you can keep your. So it's really just a matter almost of naturalizing the craft within your like mind, consciousness, psyche, the way you navigate yourself in the day. Basically, learn how to make your craft cooperate with every aspect of your total internal weather system. So regardless of how you are feeling, your craft can actually cooperate with it. And that just comes from a whole lot of writing daily. So you kind of, if you can just move, really, if you move out of the paradigm of the dance with like catharsis and euphoria and these kind of things, like you will, in a way, every poet kind of reinvents what poetry is according to their even if we can have the similar structures, but just even if it's just the way I synthesize a line in this little 2 seconds, just based on what I'm really feeling inside, what I'm really interacting with externally. And that is just, you know, so that's just kind of a gardening process. What happens after that, it kind of just happens. I would just say mind your relationship to the craft, and then let the rest take care of itself, but pass out some leaflets. You know?
No, I get it.
But now, as far as like the press, like that, it was really a simple equation. I mean, you know, there's just like, you know, we you know, there's the means of production. You know, the processes that take a natural resource and turn it into a product. And this is all in ruling class hands, right? And so we know in kind of preparing ourselves for power, though it's not on a huge scale, it's a worthy exercise for us to, you know, create our own kind of systems of production. And so capturing kind of the means, a little bit of the means of cultural production was the guiding objective for the press. And what, you know, just that this is how you put your hands on reality. And there are other, you know, I wouldn't even call them secondary journeys to it, but you know, there are just a lot of brilliant people who don't have books. And people would, you know, like, people would be like, oh man, what do I, you know, like asking for advice on this and that. And it's just like, you don't really need advice, you just need a break. Mm-hmm. And so providing that little opportunity was also objective. You know, we also have, you know, we publish, you know, people in prison. It's a whole kind of, you know, to kind of, resist that liquidation of people. So it's kind of a, not like a no-brainer, but
just do it
easy
kind of thing.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
like if you have the if you have a little bit of know-how and a little bit of leverage, it's easy to facilitate. Why wouldn't you?
Right. Well, that's
It's not actually in practice. It's not the easiest.
Yeah, because
but it's not impossible, or it's not mystifying.
Right.
Like anytime you have the opportunity to participate in a process that doesn't mystify you, you can make it happen, and it's worth doing it.
Right, and it's not without its logistical concerns. Like we've talked about things like the very practical matters of distribution, for example, and that it would be preferable to find a Black-owned or a person of color-owned distribution network. No such thing exists at this time that we know of, but that's a goal, So
and that's how you expand our means of production.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So before we go, if I might ask you to choose another piece to recite, anything topical, anything on your mind, or just an old a classic. Take a moment.
I got you. I go to the railroad tracks and follow them to the station of my enemies. A cobalt-toothed man pitches pennies at my mugshot negative. All over the United States, there are toddlers in the rock. I see why everyone out here got in the big cosmic basket, and why blood agreements mean a lot, and why I get shot back at. I understand the psycho-spiritual refusal to write white history or take the glass freeway. White skin tattooed on my right forearm. A ricochet sewers near where I collapsed into a rat-infested manhood. My new existence is living graffiti in the kitchen with a lot of gun cylinders to hack up. House of God in part, no cops in part. My body brings down to Christmas. The new bullets pray over blankets made from the old bullets. Pray over the 28th hour's next beauty mark. Extrajudicial Confederate statue restoration. The waistband before the next protest poster. By the way, time is not an illusion, Your Honor. I will save your deaths for last. You're a widow, Your Honor. You're moving money again, Your Honor. It's only raining one thing. Non-white cops and prison guard shadows reminded me of spoiled milk floating on an oil spill. The neighborhood making a lot of fuss over its demise. A new lake for a Black Panther Party. Malcolm X's ballroom jacket slung over my son's shoulder, the figment of village, a new news to a new white preacher, all in an abstract painting of a president. Bought slavery some time, didn't it? The tanted screeches of military boats and election Tuesday cars, a cold-blooded study in leg irons, proof that some white people have actually fondled nooses, that sundown couples made their vows of love over opaque peach plastic and boat action audiences. The Medgar Evers second is definitely my favorite law of science. Fondle news clippings and primitive Methodists, my arm changes imperialisms. Simple policing versus structural frenzies. Elementary school script versus even wider white spectrums. Artless bleeding and the challenge of watching civilians think. Terrible rituals they have around the corner. They let their elders beg for public mercy. I'm going to go ahead and sharpen these kids' heads and their arrows myself and see how much gravy spills out of family crest. Modern fans of war. With their T-shirt poems and T-shirt guilt. And me having on the cheapest pair of shoes on the bus, I have no choice but to read the city walls for signs of my life.
Thank you, Tongo. That's it for this edition of the San Francisco Live's live talk series. What a way to end this year, and really appreciate Tongo Eisen-Martin family and friends for joining us today. We'll be back in the new year. Thanks, Bird and Beckett. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Jenna. That's a wrap.
And thanks, Bird and Beckett, again. Well, thank you, Denise.
Thank you.
Right on.
Hey, we did it. It's like that just
and it only took 2 sips of water.
that flew by.